session proper on divination and Akashic Records. Okay, now let me just give a quick recap. So divination is about trying to find out about the future and unknown, typically using unconventional and supernatural means. Okay, and Akashic Records is just a way of, it's one of the ways of doing divination, whereby the Akashic Record reader is supposed to access the library in heaven. Okay, for information like past lives, what are you supposed to do, why are you born on earth, what is your soul mission, whom you're supposed to marry, what are the trials in this life that you face, so on and so forth. Even generic information is like it's a library, so it's like an encyclopedia. You can find out about things that are unknown to most people. All right, so let me talk about divination. Now, first of all, divination is a form of energy reading. Okay, energy reading. So for the regulars who have been attending our spiritual questions answered with CordyKet session, last month we covered energy reading, and I believe the session was about 1.5 hours long. If you missed it, you can access our YouTube. All right, go to our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel is, in case, so it's just youtube.com, right? youtube.com/C for channel /CordyKet. All right, /CordyKet. That's our channel, and there's a playlist under spiritual questions answered, whereby most of our spiritual questions answered sessions are recorded and put up there. So I think only one session was not recorded, and sometimes certain things might be censored. All right. So live sessions is where you get to ask questions. So basically, divination is a form of energy reading. So energy reading is reading the subtle energies, the spiritual realms, accessing the information there and interpreting it to give answers to the future and unknown. Right? Energy reading can do that, and we covered energy reading last month. So this month is more specifically about divination. So now let me talk about certain types of divination that we have in Malaysia. For example, in temples, for example, all right, in one of the very popular divinations that is available in Malaysia is through mediums, right? So you have people who act as mediums, whereby spirits will enter them, and the spirits have access to information about the future and the unknown, right? And you can tell that this person is not himself or herself when the spirit enters the body, right? So here is the thing, okay? With this type of mediumship kind of divination, you're getting your answers from a spirit. So for us, we also try to clarify if we were to do such divination, whereby it's possible, right? We have to ascertain whether the spirit is a good spirit or a bad spirit, divine or ghost, right? Again, if you're interested in divine or ghost, the topic was covered and it's also in our YouTube. So that is one form of very popular divination. Myself, since young, my parents go to a particular temple in Ipoh. All right. So there is a Ipoh. There's a famous temple whereby it's a Buddhist temple. Okay, it's a Buddhist temple, and there's a form of divination. The Chinese or Cantonese term is called Wak Fu Ke. So it's a very interesting form of divination. Quite a number of Buddhist or Taoist temples in Malaysia, they do that. So they have this Y stick. Okay, there's a Y stick. On the Y stick, you have one person holding one end of the Y stick. Although the Y stick is not this big. It's just it's not that big. It's like maybe a length of my hand over here, like one Y. So one person will hold one end, the other person will hold on the other end, right? So is something like this size. Okay, it's the Y will look like this, and then the children. So one person hold on each end, right? And they will write it in a sandbox. Okay, they will write in a sandbox. Supposedly the two person, the spirits will guide them. So the two persons will write on the sandbox. So they'll write, and typically because it's a Buddhist or Taoist temple, they'll write in Chinese, write one letter, and because it's sand, they will just move the sand over and they keep on writing. So people, the devotees, they can go to the temple and they will ask, they will pray and they ask, and then they will write the questions, they'll ask the spirits, they'll ask the Buddhas. The temple where I go to was one is a Buddhist temple and one is a temple, the Taoist temple, whereby they are Taoist deities. And it's very interesting. So you ask them and then they will write the answers. So that is one form of divination. Other forms of divination which you all might have heard of is like playing oracle cards or tarot cards, right? Tarot cards. Now, so tarot cards, some are really doing divination, whereby they really, some is just a game, right? Some people treat it as playing a game, so it may not be a really proper divination. But for those who really can, whether it's tarot cards or oracle cards, right, it's also a form of divination. And maybe when I have time, we'll have a separate session to talk specifically about tarot and oracle cards. All right, so there are all kinds of divination, and let me share with you all a type of divination that I do. All right, just give me a few seconds. All right. Those of you who know me, who've seen me do work, right, you might have seen me carrying this around. Can you see this? All right. These are called dowsing rods. Okay, dowsing rods. Dowsing. Dowsing is a form of divination. All right. These are L rods. They are also people who douse using a Y rod. Now, let me share with you the history of dowsing rods. It's a very, very ancient kind of divination. So think about the old days. In the old days, there is no piped water, right? In the old days, there is no piped water. So what people have to do is they dig wells, right? Now digging wells is very difficult. It is a huge effort. You need a lot of manpower. And the question is this, the biggest question is this: how do you know there is water underneath where you're going to dig the well? Okay, if there is a spring, you see the spring and then you dig at the spring, or yeah, you can find the well definitely if there's a spring. But if there's no spring, how do you know there's groundwater underneath, right? Or there's an underground stream or something like that. How do you know? Right. So what the ancients did was they did dowsing, right? And there are people who were trained, right, to use either a Y rod, a rod whereby it's like this, or they take a twig, a branch, right, a branch broken off, and they walk along the ground, or they can do like me, right, a dowsing rod, and they walk, and they tune themselves to the earth, right? And they will be able to pick up the information, and it will be displayed on the dowsing, either the Y stick or on the dowsing rods, and they will know underneath there is water. And this very same method was used in oil prospecting, right? In the olden days, when they had to dig for petrol under the ground, how do they do it? Before they had all this modern technology, right, to sense underground, they used dowsers, right? They hired people who do dowsing, and dowsing was one of the oldest forms of divination, and it's also part of what I do. All right, so dowsing is another form of divination, but essentially, okay, all these are forms of energy reading. Okay, they are all forms of energy reading. It may seem unconventional or supernatural, but if you understand energy reading, which is what I explained last month, it is not that hocus pocus after all. Okay, so what I would like to try and explain, okay, on top of what I've already talked about, which is energy reading last month, is how can we possibly know about the future? Right? Now, the thing with energy reading is we're trying to read the energy, the subtle energy, or the the invisible stuff to get information, right? And from that kind of angle, we can understand that yes, you can sense subtle energy, you can get some kind of information. But how can someone get information about the future? Is it possible to sense the future, right? How does energy reading or forms of divination, how is it able to know things in the future? So I will just split into two types, okay? Obtaining information about the future. So to make it simple, obtaining information about the future is, first of all, you got to consider some people will use a certain source of information. A source of information that is not the self. That means the person that you're going to for divination is getting it from another source. Okay, from another source. And typically, this source would be some form of spirit. All right, so it will be some form of spirit, and we assume that the spirits are more knowledgeable than us. All right, that is the general assumption. For us at CordyKet, we don't make assumptions like that. We try to find out, if we were to do divination this way, try to find out the future by going to another source, which is typically a spirit, for example, right? What is very important is we want to know the identity or the alignment of the spirit. We want to know whether the spirit is aligned to goodness, aligned to light, aligned to heaven, right? Or could it be a mischievous spirit? It could be a lost soul. It could be a demon. How do you know? All right. So for us, we have very strict protocols to ensure that we are connecting to the right source, even if it's a spirit. Okay. So there are many people out there doing, and one of the ways they're doing is connecting to a spirit. They themselves are not able to do energy reading to read the future. They go to a source, and this source, typically a spirit, is assumed to have the ability. But how does a spirit do it? And how can we as humans do it? So in fact, we can all train to do it, and it's part of what I teach in Infinity, in the Infinity program. If you learn enough, we also teach how to do this divination. So the other way of doing divination for the future is the self. The self as in the person you're asking to divine, to do divination, right? You go to a person, let's say you come to us, CordyKet, right? Cordelia or myself, or our disciples. We ourselves, without going to a spirit to ask, we have the ability to know about the future. The question is, how is this possible? All right. Now, some of you might be asking, must be asking, especially those of you who are scientific. Now, the answer is in science. Okay. My background is that I am an engineer. Okay, I'm very scientific, I'm a very logical person, yet I'm into all this, and the only reason I'm into all this kind of focus, spiritual, subtle energies, what people think is not possible, is because I experienced it myself, and because I can rationalize it myself, I am convinced, and because it does not in any way contradict the science that I know, despite all my studies up to university level, and I'm still educating myself by keeping abreast with technologies. Everything I know does not contradict science. Here, in fact, when it comes to reading the future, science is in agreement with energy reading. Here's why. Okay, for those of you who are scientific, you might have heard of Albert Einstein. Even if you're not scientific, you have heard of Albert Einstein. Right now, you may not know it, but Einstein is famous for this theory. It's called the theory of relativity. Okay, I'm not going to explain the theory of relativity to you, but I'm going to explain a consequence of the theory of relativity. By the consequence of theory of relativity, which is proven to be very accurate, right? You replace a lot of old science, especially Newtonian physics. Those who know Isaac Newton, right? Newton's laws, right? First law, second law, third law, so on and so forth. Einstein's theory of relativity replaced all that. Okay, actually, since about 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, 1905 onwards, right? He discovered the theory of relativity. Now, the big thing about relativity is this: space and time is a continuum. Continuum. What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay, basically, space and time are linked. Space, as in the space around us, and time, they are inevitably linked and cannot be separated, such that anything that happens in time can affect space. Anything that that happens in space, right, can affect time. Right? We experience, for normal people like us, we experience space and time separately, but space and time actually exist as a form of continuum. So the term here used is continuum. All right. So let me try to illustrate what is space-time continuum, and then I will elaborate how can we do some sort of future divination, right? Having understood the space-time continuum. So this is a cushion, right? Imagine the surface of the cushion is the space-time continuum. So space and time, if I were to put it very simplistically, the y-axis here can be space, the x-axis can be time. So at every point on this cushion, there is a certain number for space, certain number for time, right? Certain characteristic for space and time. So as we move along this surface of this cushion, you are at different space and different time, right? So this space-time continuum. Now, what Einstein had discovered is, like, for things like gravity, right? Gravity is not just due to mass, right? It is something that affects space-time. So something which is very heavy, will bend space-time. So if you imagine this is a cushion, and if I were to put something very heavy on it, right? If I were to put a ball on it, right? Let's say my fist is a ball. Can you see that the space-time will cave in, right? The space-time will cave in, and the caving in represents the time. This time either elongates or dilates. It either dilates or it shortens when there is huge objects of huge mass that can bend space-time. So they use this theory of relativity in today's astronomy, even in GPS systems, right? In GPS systems, there's an account for tiny changes in space and time due to theory of relativity, and that is why our GPS is so accurate. Without using the theory of relativity, our GPS cannot be so accurate. and it is founded. Okay, one of the key concepts is space-time is continuum. So if we were to imagine outer space, the universe, right? So you have the sun is sitting on space-time. The sun is so huge and the mass is so big that it forms a hollow in the space-time continuum, and the hollow will act as gravity. Okay, I hope I'm not getting too abstract for you all if you are not very scientific, but never mind. So space-time is a continuum. That means if space-time is a continuum, now think about this. Time is a continuum. That means from the present moment until the future, from the present moment until the past, is continuous, right? So it is possible where you are right now on the space-time continuum, right? You can obtain information from a point in space-time that is in the future or in the past. This is because the space-time continuum is a form of subtle energy that energy reading can read. All right? Okay? So this is kind of built up from energy reading last month. So those of you who attended last month, you would understand energy reading more. Basically, energy reading is the ability to detect this subtle energy phenomena and realms to obtain information. And because there's space-time continuum, and the space-time continuum is not what I say, is science itself say. Albert Einstein, right, one of the key biggest minds of our that we know, pointed it out. It's space-time continuum. So it is possible if you have the skills, if you have the knowledge, you have the ability, energy reading can read the space-time continuum, and you can find out about the future. That's simple. All right, but you need to have the knowledge, of course, you need training and so on and so forth. But it is possible thanks to space-time continuum. All right, so, and of course, anything about the unknown is all actually energy reading, and different types of divination will yield different types of results. And sometimes different divination for the same topic, oftentimes they will yield the same result. So let me share with you a personal story of mine, whereby I needed to do divination. And this was the time when I just ran into, after I just got to know Cordelia, and I was beginning my spiritual, it was very early in my spiritual journey. So it was 2010. 2010? Yeah, I believe it was 2010. Okay, so it was 2010, and what happens was this. I had a spiritual awakening in 2009, and by 2010, I was doing energy readings, chakra readings, crystal readings, and so on and so forth. And I started to meet people who are psychic and they have all these abilities. So in 2010, I was 34 years old. Okay, so in 2010, I was 34 years old, and basically, I only started meeting people who have special abilities in 2009 onwards. So in 2009, I was 33 years old. Can you imagine, for 33 years of my life, 32 years plus of my life, I didn't know anyone who could do all these readings, who have all these special abilities, who could see ghosts and everything. But by 2009 and 2000, and especially 2010, I started to meet so many of them. It was like the timing was there. You know, I opened myself up. I mean, there was spiritual awakening and the timing was ready, and I started meeting all these kind of people. So what happened was this. I was into crystals at the time. I started off with crystals, right? So I met one person who can talk to crystals. Okay, can you believe it? Talk to crystals. All right, so crystals have consciousness, and some of the consciousness are good, and they are like this. You know, they're like spirit, and they can divine the future. So I met this person who could talk to crystals. I think he was the second or third person I know who could talk to crystals. And so I was showing him my crystals and everything one day, and suddenly he had a message for me. This was late 2010. my crystal told him to relay a message to me, and the message was this: Kat, next year you are supposed to go for some trips. There will be danger if you go the trips, so don't go. And I was shocked. Now this person had no idea I had plans. I had made plans to travel in February 2011. I made two plans. I made a plan to visit an ashram in India, followed by a trip to Thailand. All right, the trip to Thailand is more for crystals, to meet suppliers and so on and so forth, and to replenish my crystal stock. So I planned and I paid for flights, made reservations for two trips in February 2011. And the crystal told this guy relayed the message and he said, hey dude, your crystal is saying don't go. And I said, wow, I have two trips in February and I paid up for it already. It's thousands of ringgit, thousands of, I paid up thousands for the trip, and how can I not go? I want to go, but the crystal told me it's dangerous. So I was like, I had to confirm this. So I went to another form of divination. So one of the forms of divination, or also maybe not divination, is I went to my good pal who is into Chinese metaphysics, into what have you heard of 八字? Those of you who are at my feng shui talk, you might have heard me talking about this 八字. So it's a type of life planning calculation. It's like a form of astrology. So I went to my Chinese astrologer, metaphysics friend, and then I told him what the crystal said, and then I gave him my travel dates, and then he did the calculations, and then he told me, yes, the crystal is right. During the time you are down on your luck and giving some indications, it's not safe for you to travel, so don't travel. Then I was like, oh man, but I wanted to go because I paid money. So I was like, okay, let's go to the temple. So I went to the temple to do this divination. The Buddhist temple was closed the day I went, and only the Taoist temple was open. So I went to the Taoist temple that was open, and so I queued up, and then I prayed and everything. I was waited there, my turn, and then I asked question. I asked that, I'm going to travel in February. Two trips. Is it safe for me to go? And guess what? The answer said no. According to the divine, the Taoist deities, I shouldn't go. It's a bad time for me. Right? The crystal said it's a bad time. 八字, Chinese metaphysics say it's a bad time. And the Taoist deities also said it's a bad time. They can calculate and everything. So, no, it's a bad time for you. Don't go. If you go, something terrible will happen to you. So I was still not satisfied. Now the good thing is this. I had just met Cordelia in late 2010, not long after these things happened. So I looked Cordelia up and I consulted Cordelia on this. I think I'm not sure whether I have already become a student or not. I consulted, I was already Cordelia's student. So I asked Cordelia, Cordelia, can you please help me find out, because, I really want to go. Can I just go for one of the trips? I don't want to forfeit both trips. So Cordelia did her thing, right? And Cordelia can do both, right? As I can do now, can do both, consult spirit and using her own ability. So I think she did a combination of both. And she gave me an answer. And the answer was this. India trip you are to go, because this was a trip that was planned, that was already destined for you to go. And you will learn things there. You are meant to learn things there. But the Thailand trip, you should not go. So according to Cordelia, because she did this, right, she assessed the space-time continuum. She told me she saw a vision of me being the unsuspected victim of a robbery gone wrong. Someone robbed the shop, came out, and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, bad luck, and I was slashed or something, I was hurt, and I was hospitalized, and there's possibility of me not making it, right, or being critically injured. So I was like, hey man, out of all the different types of divination, Cordelia gave me the most accurate thing. You know, she could say exactly that India I'm meant to go, and I did went. I did go. I went to India trip. I learned a lot of things. Some of the things which I will also be sharing with everyone on Spiritual Questions Answered. Right, so I learned a lot of things in that spiritual trip, and I didn't go to Thailand, and everything was fine. Right, so Cordelia was able to point it out to me. So, and henceforth, you know, I trusted Cordelia, and I learned more and more from her. And of course, now I bring this together and I'm teaching everyone. So this is my own life experience. Right, back at the time when I'm not at this level, when I don't have the current knowledge that I have now, whereby different sources of divination arrive at the same conclusion. So they can all, you know, sort of access the space-time continuum, right? But different people, like if you ask the spirit might not tell you what's going to happen. Right? Like the crystal didn't exactly say what's going to happen. Or maybe sometimes the spirits don't want to tell you exactly. Some will, some won't. Even for us right now, when we do this, we don't always reveal the information that we know. We only reveal enough, right? Because there's a certain discretion. Revealing too much is not good. Revealing too little is also not good. So we have to gauge the level of information that we give during a divination session. All right. So different kinds of divination, and then now we're going to talk more about Akashic Records. So like I said, Akashic Records is supposed to be a library in heaven, but if you were to ask some Akashic Record readers, they don't know that they are supposed to access the library in heaven, right? They don't even know that Akashic Record is a library in heaven, or some know. But if you ask them, they will say they are not the ones accessing the Akashic Records themselves. So I am, I found out from these Akashic Record readers, right? Other Akashic Record readers, how they do or what they learned, because it seems that nowadays there are many people offering courses teaching people how to access Akashic Records. And some courses are very expensive, thousands and tens of thousands, and some are very cheap, right? Just a few hundred, or whatever currency, wherever you are. So, all kinds of Akashic Records readings out there. I found out from some how they do it. All right. So, most of the Akashic Record readers right now, okay, with all these popular forms of Akashic Records, that means very easy. Most of them do not access the library in heaven directly. So they are doing exactly the same thing. So they are not doing by themselves, right? They're not doing by themselves. So it's similar. They can either ask the spirit or they can do it by themselves. Right? So Cordelia was able to do Akashic Record reading. So I have some very interesting Akashic Record reading Cordelia. Right? She can do it herself or she can ask the spirit to do it for her. Now, so when I had my Akashic Record reading from Cordelia, she talked about past lives and everything. And Cordelia didn't just do that. We have a more advanced form of divination that is even more superior to Akashic Records. Akashic Records is just one way, right? Now, okay, back to Akashic Records. So the thing is this, most of the people I know who are doing Akashic Record readings right now, they are communicating with a spirit and getting answers from the spirit, and the spirit is supposed to be the one to access the library in heaven, to access the Akashic Records. So my question to them is this: how do you know, first of all, the spirit that you're talking to have the ability to access the Akashic record? They are not able to tell. If I were to ask them, are you able to tell whether the spirit that you're communicating with comes from heaven? They say no. What they can say is the spirit tells them they are from heaven. Then my question is this: how do you know whether the spirit is lying to you or the spirit is telling the truth? Again, they don't know. Is it possible to know? Yes, it is. And this is what we do. This is what we teach. We teach people how to make sure you're connecting to the right spirit, how to ascertain whether the spirit is telling you the truth or not. But most people out there, they're not. They are not. I think they are not properly trained, right? So when I ask them about their protocols, how do they access the Akashic records? So the teacher will give them an invocation, right? An invocation to read that is supposed to connect them to a spirit that can connect to the Akashic records. They just keep reading the invocation, and then they wait for some signals, and then they ask the spirit questions. But there is no verification anywhere along the protocol that they're doing it right, whether the spirit is really from heaven and whether the spirit is really telling you the truth. And I hate to say this, when we check them, we find that most of these people, they are not actually accessing the real Akashic record. Now, what is the real Akashic records like? Okay, it's a library in heaven, but not everyone have the same access level. Okay, I have to talk about this. Access level. What do I mean by access level? Have you watched like a US government movie, CIA, FBI? They talk about having clearance level, access level. If you're not cleared up to a certain level, you can only, if you access the CIA system, the FBI system, you can only get the information up to your access or clearance level. It's the same thing in the Akashic records, right? It's the exact same thing. If you are the person, if you have learned how to access the Akashic records, if you are the person doing it yourself, you may not have the access level to get the kind of information that your client wants. And most people will not have the access level. Why? Because this access level is dependent on a lot of things. It's highly dependent on your spiritual cultivation. Your spiritual level, right? Your spiritual level. Highly dependent on the spiritual level, on the spiritual level of your soul. So if your soul cultivation, your spiritual level is not high enough, the kind of information that you get from Akashic record is just plain blank. It's nothing interesting at all. It doesn't tell you much, does it? Right? So if you don't have the clearance level, you can't do it yourself. Then you have to go to the spirit. Now the question is, how do you know the spirit has the clearance level? Right? So that's another question. So for us, when we do it, we have to make sure and we ascertain everything to make sure that the spirit is doing it for us. We have. For us, we ourselves, we have the access level, and audience level, access level is higher than mine. Okay? Let me put it that way. So I've learned quite a lot of different things. But nowadays we don't go to Akashic records much because we have I would say, for most of the questions that our clients come to us for, we have a superior type of divination. We call it soul reading. So for most of the questions that people come to us, it's about the past lives or everything. All the records are on your soul, right? Your soul. So we access it at the soul level. And again, soul reading also depends on access level, your spiritual level. If the person who's doing a soul reading, they have high enough access level, the soul will reveal the information, because all this information at the soul level is very clear and see. Private and confidential. In the Akashic Records, it's all private and confidential. If you don't have the access level, the clearance level, you are not allowed to know the information. It makes sense, right? There are a lot of information out there that's very sensitive. So heaven does not reveal the information to people who are not ready. And for people like us, even when we have the access level, it's based on our spiritual level, spiritual maturity, so that we know what we can reveal to the client and what we can't reveal to the client. And that is why, based on our spiritual cultivation or maturity as a person, I would say, we are given the kind of access level. If you meet an Akashic record reader that blah 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 the mouth and like everything will say, post it up on the internet, I guarantee you that person is not connected to heaven, not connected to the right Akashic records, because a lot of the information is sensitive. If humanity is not ready to receive, humanity is not ready to receive. You are not supposed to disseminate it, right? If you find there's an Akashic reader who is on the internet, who's blabbing his or her mouth, revealing secrets of the universe, secrets of heaven, I can guarantee you this: that person is not revealing any secrets, but it's just mistruth spread by some spirit of mischief. That's it. Okay? So there is a lot of thought into what heaven wants to reveal. And the medium or the person who's chosen to reveal the message is also expected to be aware and mature enough to deliver the right message in the right time. They can give you the message, they can give you all the information, but you are expected to know what can be revealed. For example, when we do soul reading, all the information about you is in your soul, your past life, what you're supposed to do this life, who you're supposed to marry, what are the trials you face this life, so on and so forth. It's all there because all this is being planned by your soul. It's planned by you when you're in heaven. So all these are already planned, right? The information is there. Now, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are assessing the right soul, right? There are people who are possessed. There are people who are disturbed by evil spirits. We cannot just go to the person and just talk to the spirit with the person or the spirit that's in the person. First of all, we have to ascertain, is the spirit, the soul, the rightful soul of this person, of this vessel, this body. Or is it a spirit that is a spirit of mischief that might have possessed the person, for example? Or, not supposed to be that. So we have to ascertain all this. Make sure it's a soul of light, soul that comes from heaven. Then only we read, we ask for permission to read, and because we have the access level, they will give us the information. And oftentimes we have to consult the soul, so you've given me this information, and normally I'm a very direct person. Okay, those of you who come to see me, you notice I'm very direct. I try not to beat around the bush too much. I will try to deliver in a nice manner, right? But not too direct, but I prefer to be direct to save time, right? So I will normally be very direct with the soul and say, look, there's this sensitive information. Can I reveal this to your person, right? To your vessel, this man, right? To your vessel. So the soul will let me know yes or no, and then I will deliver the message accordingly. So we're expected to do all this. All right. So this is the way information about the future, about the unknown, can be obtained and delivered to people who are trying to seek divination. All right. So that's more or less my sharing. I will take a look at your questions. So feel free to ask questions, type in the chat, and I will address them to the best of my ability. Oh, so Xiaofang is asking, is the library in heaven looks like the library in cartoon movie Soul? I've not watched the cartoon movie Soul, so I don't know. But I'm happy to know that they have something like that in the movie. So I guess some people really do know that Akashic Records is a library. All right. So I have no idea. But the experience of going to the Akashic Records does not necessarily mean that you walk to the library, you see a building. Look, everything in heaven is energy, right? So, but they have things that are like, they're not like laptops, they're like screens, they're like terminals. You can sort of access, but it's all energy invisible, right? And then you can search for information. There's also like librarians. So the librarians or the keepers, they will actually make sure, that you have your access level, find out who you are before they will give you the information. All right. Jenny is asking how to know one's past and future life. So it's possible to know either Akashic record reading or normally it's from the soul reading. So future life is possible, but normally the future life is not accessed, right? Because you don't have any need for your future life, mainly because you have not completed your present life. All right, the future life is not fixed yet, but it may be in the planning process. So nothing is certain for the future life. Yili is asking, whose permission do we need to get access to the Akashic library? Okay, very good question. So the basic permission that you need, first of all, you need permission from your very own soul, right? From your very own soul, because our soul comes from heaven, right? So the first representative is our soul. If your soul don't even give you clearance, because your soul know, you're a very busy body, you're just going there to pick up information and disseminate to the world. Your soul will not even agree, because your soul knows you best, right? It knows that you are just playing a fool. You're not serious. You're not about helping people. So the first level is your soul, then higher up the hierarchy. And if your soul happens to be like Cordelia, to a very high access level, you can skip some levels of authority. If your soul is a very low level, let's say if you're a young soul, right? You're a young soul means you do not have much spiritual accomplishment. Spiritual accomplishment means you've not done great deeds, you've not helped humanity, you've not helped the world, and so on and so forth in the previous incarnations. You just live useless life, you just eat, sleep, drink, be merry, enjoy life, make money, die, without doing any good for society, for people around you. Your spiritual level is actually very low. So you will never have the kind of clearance, right? So if you're a young soul, soul cannot even give you clearance. Your soul will have to look to higher authority to give clearance. So that's why a lot of people cannot do Akashic record properly, because if your soul is not at a high level enough, you cannot even gain access. Right? You cannot even gain the access clearance level to read something meaningful for your client. Limala is asking, what kind of qualities would someone need to cultivate in order to be trained as an Akashic reader? Very good question. First of all, your spiritual level. Now, spiritual level, I shared with everyone, I think in my first spiritual questions answered session. What is spirituality? What's spiritual cultivation? Right? That session is unfortunately not recorded. Spiritual cultivation is about becoming a better person, a good person. Okay? I'll just put it simply, becoming a good person. Right? And becoming a good person in the widest sense, in terms of values. All right? In terms of values. what kind of values? We're talking about good values like love, compassion, wisdom, harmony, truth. Right? If you're not of truth, if you're not of honor, integrity, you don't have all these values in your cultivation, in who you are as a person, you will not be entrusted with responsibility, right? With things that are important and that are P and C. Does it make sense? Think about it. Will you trust someone with things that are P and C if the person is not trustworthy? It's not of honor, it's not of integrity, it's not truthful, it's a bloody liar. Will you trust the person with that kind of information? So to be an Akashic record reader, you have to be a very good person in order to qualify. And if you happen to know an Akashic recorder who is a liar, who is a terrible person, who cheats and everything, that is, I would say, an alarm signal to you that this person is not accessing the right Akashic record. That guy could be bullshitting you for all you know, right? Could be telling lies, right? If you know the person, right? So essentially, you need to be a good person, you need to be mature, and you need to have wisdom. You need to have the wisdom to know what to say, what not to say. If you're the kind of person who like to blah, 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 you will never be given the ability to divine the future and the unknown, or to access Akashic records, or to access the soul for soul readings. Never. Simple as that. Or even if you can, your clearance level will be very low. They will just tell you the things that you need to tell the person. That's it. You need to tell to the person, no, you cannot go there. Right? It's like my example, right? I was very lucky to meet Cultivate with a very high access level. So she had access to details that none of the others had. The crystal didn't have it, the house babies didn't have it, and Cordelia was able to pinpoint it. So this is no joke, right? This is no joke, because all the divination letters say it will not be safe for me to travel. And I placed my bet on what Cordelia said. Can go India, cannot go Thailand, right? I went to India, nothing happened, and true enough, I learned about that. As she said to me, I was supposed to go and learn, right? And nothing will happen to me there. Right? That's a very brave thing to say, considering that temple, metaphysics, crystal all said no, right? So that's why I was that was one of the early signs to me that Cordelia was the right person for me to learn from, right? So next question. Stefan is asking, what about reading tea leaves and Turkish coffee? Yes, that's a form of divination too, right? So there's a form of divination, and it can be divination or it can be like a game, right? So it may not necessarily be true. So if you will notice that in any field, whether it's Akashic record reading, energy reading, whatever, some people are better than others. Because now in our case of this type of divination, because some people are the real deal, some people are not, right? So same thing. So reading tea leaves and coffee, coffee reading, for example, the coffee grounds reading, right? You stir the coffee and then form something. So anyone can look at what is formed of tea leaves, and then they imagine, conjecture something in their mind, and they say, and then a story flows out. Right? You're just plucking things from mid-air. But a real reader, what they do is they look at what is in the tea leaves, and at the same time, they are communicating, right? They are communicating. They're communicating with the spirit, like we do for soul readings and everything. We are communicating to clarify the information. Okay, let me mute. I will mute you. Right, and communicate to ascertain what is the level of information we can reveal. Right, that is what's going on. So yes, tea leaves and coffee, that can be a form of divination. So Kevin, do we do online soul reading? Yes, we do. Now normally you can contact us, and then we'll ascertain whether we want to do it. We don't do it for frivolous reasons. And if you want to come for past life readings, we don't do past life readings for fun. All right. If you have no reason to do past life readings, we are not going to do it for you. You pay me money, also I won't do it for you. What for? If you're just doing this for fascination, we won't do it. What is the point of doing such divination? If you have a real purpose, right, you can. Now, most of the past life reading that we do is we help people. For example, a person come to us, he has some problems, and we do an energy reading. And then we find out, hey, it's linked to some past life karma. You did something in the past life, you did something wrong, right? And then we have to find out what happened in your past life. So we can do some what we call a past life, a karma balancing, karmic balancing. Balance the karma with your past life, whatever wrong that you did, so that whatever is happening to you will go away. For example, one of my early clients, he had some past life karma that gave him toe nail fungus, right? And I can't remember if it was a past life karma or I think it was present life. And I did the energy reading and said yes. And then I came up with karmic balancing, and the client read it, and and I think the nail fungal growth went away. And for example, there are some people who have eczema, or skin rash that always happen in the same spot of the body. I have a case recently, and again I did energy reading, right? And I was expecting a solution like put some cream or whatsoever, or the skin problems can be due to hygiene or not having a good probiotic balance or something like that. But the answer came back is past life. And then normally for past life reading, Cordelia is the one who do, because she has a higher clearance level, right? And she is the one who's a medium, and it's way easier for her to access this type of information than I do. I can access, but not with the ease that Cordelia did. So Cordelia read and everything, and she concurred with me. Yes, it's a past life problem, and then we relate to the person. Look, this is a past life problem. You have to do some past life karmic balancing, and after it's done, the problem is much less in terms of eczema, for example. And there are a couple of other things, strange things that are linked to past life. So we do it, but we don't do it for fun. We don't come and, hey, I want to know what my past life and my last life was. Okay, we don't want to earn this type of money. We are not here to play. Right? We're not here to play. We're not here to satisfy people's curiosity. If there's a genuine reason, we will do it. And you can, we don't charge much for it, right? And that is because we want to do the real work. We want to help people, right? In cases where there is a need, we will do it, right? So Evan is asking, Akashic record is kept in Heaven Library, got guardian keeper? Yes. So it's a Heaven Library, right? So there is my librarian and a keeper there, like I said earlier. So depends, if you have certain clearance level, you don't even need the keeper, because your clearance level is already there. Your soul has made the arrangements for you, and when you go, then you can go access, right? If you don't have the clearance level, you try to enter, you find that your way is barred, right? And you have the answer to the keeper, to the librarian. Everyone asking, higher authority, is it mean God? No, not necessarily. So heaven is I would say heaven is like a corporation. But the highest level is the source of light, right? What most people call God, God with a capital G, okay? God with a capital G, the highest one, the source of light, the one who created heaven, right? So the highest authority is there, but heaven is like a corporation. So God don't handle this type of tiny details thing. So there are other God delegates to work down to other souls, to the keepers, for example, to the librarians, right? So they as souls, when they are up there, when they are not reincarnated, we have like a job, like day job, or we have things to do. It's not sit up there and shake leg or enjoy, or some people say, oh, you go to heaven, they are it's just enjoy life, eat, drink, be merry, have sex. No, it's not like that. Okay, it's serious work. Heaven is serious work because we manage a lot of things, right? The universe kind of thing. Okay, Selvan is asking, low spiritual people, young soul, they have quite happy life, enjoy living on earth. I see people like that, significantly. Well, I won't say that everyone who are enjoying happy life and all that, not helping people, that they are necessarily young souls. You can also be an old soul, but because the world, the environment that we live in is so focused on material possession, material gain, and enjoying life and living selfish lives, then most people cannot find a way out. Eventually, all the people who are connected to light, who are connected to the source of light, you will find that you go through. Some people call it like midlife crisis. You go through depression. You find that life has no meaning. All this work, go to work, come back home. You have a family and everything. You just try to earn money, just get stressed. You find that you question your existence. I went through that. Why am I on this path? It's because I went through that. I went through depression. I was earning a lot of money. I was living in Singapore. I was having a good job. I was recognized by all my superiors, and I was kind of put on fast track, right? And I was impressing everybody, but I was very unhappy. I became depressed. I became suicidal, right? And I tried to kill myself. This is my story. All right. Short of it is I didn't die. Okay. Suicide attempts failed, and I left Singapore. I came back to Malaysia, and I went to spirituality. Was one of the ways, right? The other way was I joined the MLM, network marketing, to build my positive self and reinvent myself. Learn Chinese language, for example, right? I couldn't speak Chinese properly last time, so I took the challenge and everything. So I changed and I made myself over spirituality, meditation, learning about the different religions, spiritual concepts. That was very early. That was like 2004, right? That was 2004. 2004, I was 28 years old, right? 28 years old. So, and I noticed a lot of people go through the same thing, right? If you live meaningless life that is not full of purpose, to go through it. And some of you might have experienced that. You feel that you're very unhappy where you are, even though you're very good at what you do, you're very successful, but you find that internally something is very wrong, and you feel like you just want to quit. You want to quit and you want to travel the world, or you want to quit and you want to do something else, or you want to quit and do something meaningful, or you will bump into people who's doing something totally different, and just change and open up your mind, and maybe there's some sort of a spiritual awakening or some eureka moments that you want to do something different with your life. All right, so it can happen. So sometimes have to wait for the opportunities. Typically, you need to be connected to light. So, and I'll just keep it very simple. If you want to be connected to light, it's all about values, right? And if you're a religious person, being religious helps, being spiritual helps, but values, right? It's no use being spiritual, religious, pumping gospels, pumping the scripture, but your values suck, right? You're not a good person, you tell lies and everything. All right, so values are very important. That is the true measure, right, of whether a person is good, whether a person is spiritual or not. All right. If you don't mind, can you please, for the last question, the last few questions, I can't see it now because I had to exit and come back. So those who have questions that I have not answered, can you please, copy and paste and ask them again so I can address your questions? I believe I have 3 or 4 questions left. So the last question was by Suskita about the young souls. Oh, okay, Jenny, does one life being predetermined before being born? Yes. All right. So our lives are actually predetermined before we are born, and I believe I spoke about this before very briefly, and someone in one of the groups even shared a book, right? So I know there are doctors or psychotherapists, they do hypnotherapy to find out what goes on in between lives, in between past lives. And they actually saw that the souls will work with um, divine or heavenly beings to plan out their life. So actually, all our life is kind of like there's a certain destiny. You know, to really explain it, I will have to do a session on it, a session on destiny and soul planning, how it works. According to our experience, not the books. I've bought the books, but I've not read them. Never found the time to read it, and it's kind of stuff we already know anyway. But I bought the books all the same. So yes, the lives are predetermined, destined. But just to give a very short explanation, is destined, but you have free will. You have free will. You can decide. You can don't go with the soul plan. It's fine. You can do what you want, right? Because you will just get reincarnated and come back again and again, right? So you don't do it now, but you have to do it in the future. You can postpone, so to speak. Okay. Edwin is asking, Akashic record means karmic record? No. So Akashic record is a library in heaven whereby they keep information on the different people, different souls, and also on information in the universe, on earth, and everything. Right? It's like a library. It's just exactly like that. It's a library. It's a library of heaven which has the knowledge of the universe. Right? If you have the right clearance level, then you will be given access. If you don't have the right clearance level, you get nonsense. I mean, not saying nonsense. You get very little out of it. So one of the things that you can get is karmic records, right? You get to know what happened in your past lives, what are the karma outstanding to which soul, and know which soul and how much karma is left for you to pay out of that. So there's all these kinds of information. For us, this very same information is available on the soul. So normally we prefer to do soul reading. Now doing soul reading for us is easier because if the person comes to me, I just make sure the person is connected to the soul. If the person is not connected to the soul, I find the soul, connect the person to the soul, and then I get the information from the soul. Instead of having to go upstairs to heaven and then look for the information and everything, it's kind of more tedious, right? But soul reading is harder to do than Akashic because let me put it this way: how many of you have heard of soul reading? I bet most of you have never heard of soul reading. I never knew there was soul reading until I met Cultivate, right? And as far as I know, I never hear of other people talk about soul reading, right? So maybe there are others, okay? So but the way we do is we do soul reading. It saves energy, right? You don't have to go up there and everything. So Kevin is saying, yeah. So Kevin is suggesting, for Jenny, right? Jenny, you can read Kevin's suggestions for which books you want to read to find out about this soul planning stuff. Now, Selfa is asking, so does it mean better not to procrastinate on passion or things want to do from the heart because need to do it sooner or later in the future life? Well, you can say so, but you have to understand: is it really from the heart? Is it really something good, or are you just trying to, are you just trying to, some people just want to play, right? They're not serious about life, so they don't. So you have to find a balance. In general, it's very simple, right? We are born on Earth to make Earth a better place, to make lives better, to make our lives better, to make the life of people around us better, to make society better. Right? Every one of us has a role to play, right? And if everyone plays according to this role, the world will become a better place and everyone will become happier. The problem is many people do not do that. Many people indulge in emotions, especially, right? Many people allow themselves to be entrapped with emotions of negativity. Many people, I would say, modern world have forgotten about values. I don't know whether you all agree. The number one value in today's world is greed. Yes. Number two, laziness. Yes. Maybe no, right? Not for some of you, right? But it is for a lot of people. They just want more and more, but having to do less and less. Greedy, more and more. Having to do less. So they are lazy, right? I mean, maybe it's a very heavy term, but I'm just being very direct. Okay? So is it better to procrastinate or to do things? So I agree with following your heart, but make sure it's according to values, it's bringing value to people, and it's according to good values, right? You can never go wrong with that, right? Whether it's soul planning or not, as long as you're bringing value to people, true value. I'm not talking about monetary value, okay? I'm not talking about monetary value. Bringing true value as in making lives better, making people happier, right? Making positive change in the world, right? So Sherry is asking, Dr. Brian Weiss talk about soul journey, but not reading, I suppose. Yeah, so Dr. Brian Weiss is one of those who talk about all this soul journey and this soul planning. So he did hypnosis from what I know. So I don't think he can't do soul reading. Soul reading is a very um, specialized technique. And like I said, I never hear other people do it. I learned it from Cultivate, and we teach it to our disciples so far. And those who are on the Infinity program, if you have learned enough, and those of you, some of you are on our Infinity program, you know that our Infinity program is not like other energy healing modalities. Reiki has 3 levels. 1, 2, 3. You do it three weekends, tada, you're done. Or maybe 3 days. I don't know, right? For us, there are many levels to learn, right? And each step is higher and higher. So, and if you don't pass the lower levels, you can't do the higher levels. So there's a lot to learn, okay? So Kevin is saying Brian Weiss has a number of books in past life. Michael Newton, yes, Michael Newton is another one. Brian Weiss, and maybe there are 3 authors, famous authors. Eileen said, how do we know that the books that we read on souls is of truth? Oh, Eileen is asking a very good question. So now, um, you know, I can't remember whether I mentioned it. Energy reading is very interesting. You know, we can actually read a book's energy, right? We can feel a book's energy, and we can know whether how much of what is said in the book is of truth. Yes. So you know, Eileen is one of the old clients, so she know. So she probably, I think, you know, she knows us, and one of the things that Cordelia and I do before we even buy books, especially when we buy non-fiction books, we will read the energy of the book to find out how much truth is in there to determine, you know, whether we want to buy the book and whether the book will help us with add on to our knowledge. So before, you know, we use energy reading for a lot of stuff, right? Like I said, you know, to buy supplements. Even for books, we do that. For DVDs or movies, you know, we can read the energy without watching or reading the thing. We read the energy first. Then we determine whether it's good for us. Then only we purchase or we spend time on it. Right? So that is possible with energy reading. That is because, again, it's all based on energy. Because truth has its own energy. And when you use energy reading, you can sense whether the energies in the book are of truth or not of truth. And truth energies are much more pleasant than energies that are not of truth, for example. So you can again train yourself to read energies of truth. But again, it's linked to values. So just a quick one. If you want to read truth, you must live in truth. You must practice truth. Your values must be of truth. But if you're a liar, you can't read truth because your cultivation of truth is very low. All right, this is just a simple thing. Kevin is asking, yes, all these authors use hypnosis. Okay, so Selfa is asking, when doing divination through self means connect to our own primary soul? No. No. Yourself, if you're connecting to a primary soul, it means you're speaking from another source, it's not yourself. But yourself For example, those of you who want to know, we have energy systems. Okay, we have energy systems. I always tell people we have three types of subtle energies: life force, chi, and prana. Most of the energy reading work and everything, we need to use prana. Right? The prana is the energy that flows in our chakras and our nadis. Right? Chi is the energy that flows in meridians and the dantian. Life force is the cellular energy. Right? So these three subtle energies are different, even though most people think that they're different. Now, we have to use our prana energy, prana system, because, for example, if you want to read the future, to access the space-time continuum, you need to use the third eye. Some of you have heard about the third eye, the Ajna chakra. Okay, so the ability is in the third eye, and you need to cultivate terms of energy, your prana energy. Right? So it is yourself, your third eye. You have to learn how to access the third eye to do it. Right? And it also linked to values cultivation. So you find that a lot of the abilities, because these are abilities of light. All right, these are abilities of light. Abilities of light, most of it is based on values. Based on values. If you're not a good person, you can forget about all these abilities. And that is why you might have noticed that spiritual people or even religious people, the monks, the priests, they seem to have these type of abilities, right? They seem to have these type of abilities, and I may be digressing here a bit, but I heard a very interesting story of a Malaysian politician recently, right? There is a famous Malaysian politician, I will not name her. She's a Christian, okay? So she's a Christian, and she was single, and I believe she was late 30s. I think she was single, and she's a Christian. She's a very devout Christian, and she she wrote an autobiography, right? A memoir on her journey, and one of the stories was about her finding her husband. Okay, finding her husband. Now, what was very interesting is this. So it all started when I think she had a meal or something with a pastor or priest, and the pastor suddenly said, "Oh, we need to pray for you, right? We need to pray for you. I don't know why. I just got the feeling that I need to pray for you," and they all prayed, and they prayed and prayed, and they don't know what they are praying for, but they all, Christians do, they come together, they hold their hands in prayer, and they hold it down, and they pray, and after some time, the priest or pastor said, "Oh, I know what it is, and I've gotten the answer." And the priest or pastor told this female politician, that, I think at the time was February or January or February or something, and he told her that in June you will receive a marriage proposal, right? And the man will be a godly man, right? And the politician was like, laugh it off and everything, I'm dating no one, and how could it be possible? But my point here is this actually came true. And you notice this, it was a priest or pastor who suddenly had holy inspiration. Holy inspiration because he's a very connected man, right? And the divine heavenly spirits chose him to pass a message to this lady. And true enough, right, over the 2 months, she managed to befriend someone, and she received a marriage proposal in June. It's no coincidence, right? So it was a very interesting story for me. Okay, and it goes to show, right? If your values are there, or you're religious, you're a good person, you have these are special abilities, and you'll no doubt have heard of these stories. The only problem is this: spirituality and all these type of things is being commercialized into this world. That's why there are a lot of Akashic Record readers and a lot of people doing divination, but they are not interested in developing their values. They're not being interested in being religious or spiritual, or they're into spirituality for fascination, and they're dabbling into all kinds of strange spirituality, which may or may not be from heaven or from the good spirits. Right? So it's a very it's a very commercial world right now. Even spirituality is being commercialized, and sad to say, even in the traditional religions, right? It's kind of getting very commercial, and not all not all in the traditional religious settings are truly of real spiritual cultivation. Right? Okay, next question. Hans is asking, how can one learn to access Akashic records himself? Like I said, we do teach, but it's a long process. So by the time we have it's included in our immunity healing program. Some people can go for a fast track. That means they just do energy reading. But immunity program is actually very what I say comprehensive. We teach people how to be energy healers, and you also need to learn energy reading because for us, why we are good at what we do is because of energy reading, right? So we have energy healing. I would split immunity healing into three branches, right? So we have on one hand is energy healing, on the second part is energy healing, and the third part is doing light work. Doing light work, like the kind of work that we do, helping people with evil spirits and black magic. That means the spiritual side of it. So some people will just want to do energy healing. Some people only want to do energy healing. Some, you cannot just do light work. In order to do light work, you need to have be a healer, also do energy reading, then you can do light work. And if you want to be a healer, uh, you can go to a certain level without energy reading, but if you want higher levels of energy healing, you need to learn energy reading. So there's a program, but not many people are on it, right? Maybe we'll make it more accessible in the future. Maybe I used to conduct classes here. Right here, this is the whiteboard I used to teach. Right, this is my home. I have another whiteboard on this side actually. So this is where I teach the classes. And because of the lockdowns, we have not been teaching. Some people are still continuing to learn from us, so we're doing online lessons like this, right, over WebEx. So yes, we do teach. But this is a very serious thing. You cannot just learn Akashic record by itself. Because we need to learn now. If you really want to learn Akashic record, we have to first of all start with fundamentals like we have to teach you about the subtle energy. Subtle energies in the human body. Right? We have to learn this is most basic foundation that we teach. We teach about the foundation things about subtle energies, then we teach about how to protect yourself in terms of energies. Right? If you want to learn Akashic record, you're going to bound to encounter spirits. If you can't protect yourself, you're in danger. So you need to learn the foundation. You need to learn how to protect yourself. You need to learn how to heal yourself before you can actually learn energy reading. And then if you don't want to learn other energy healing stuff, it's fine. You just keep on learning energy reading, then you get to Akashic record. But for us, Akashic record, because it's under light work, you have to do with spirits. Right? So you will also have to take light worker module. So there is it's a long way. We don't just teach you because you want to learn Akashic record reading, and we just teach you Akashic record reading, just like what everyone is doing right now. And what happens? So everyone who's doing, I mean, Tom, Dick, and Harry. Tom, Dick, and Harry that are doing Akashic record reading, they don't have energy reading skills to determine whether the spirit is good spirit or bad spirit. They do not have the ability to tell whether the spirit is telling them the truth or not, and they do not have the ability to defend themselves if the spirit attacks them. If they find out the spirit is lying, the spirit might attack you, and they don't have the ability to protect themselves, and they don't have the ability to heal themselves if something goes wrong. Right? So we are very different. We treat this very seriously, Continue and I. And the people who want to learn this is for serious stuff. If you want to play, yes, we do teach some oracle card reading, oracle card and tarot reading. We teach some very basics, right? And we teach way more. I believe a few of you here have learned oracle card reading from me before I taught, and you know that it's very special from the way others do it, and it's done in a way whereby you know that the card reading that you do is not just shuffle and just anyhow pick cards. You know that the cards are meant to be picked. You get a clear signal that the cards are the cards that you are meant to be picked. Right? So we do things very differently, and we're very serious about kind of work that we do. So you can't just say you want to learn and it will teach you. It's not just about the money. right? And we want to do it properly. We want to make sure it's safe for you, right? You want to do Akashic Record reading, you must be able to protect yourself, you understand things, you must be able to read energy, tell whether the spirit is a good spirit, a bad spirit, telling the truth or not telling the truth, this type of thing. Okay. All right. So I believe there are no more questions. Any more questions? Okay. Selfa has a question. I had a dream in the morning. My sister in trouble, and I was trying to help her in my dream. Half a day later, she texted me and tell me a troublesome situation. How to explain this kind of foresee future experience? Good. Okay. It's very related. Now, the first thing is this is about space-time continuum. All right. So we are in the space-time continuum, all of us. So we are linked to the future and to the past. Okay, we are linked to the future and the past. What happens in the future? The energy can ripple and arrive to us here in the present to let us know something bad or good might happen in the future. We need to take note. And sometimes we get we pick up the messages when we are very still and silent, like when we are meditating or when we're sleeping. And our brain will interpret and it will try to give us the message in the form of a dream. Right? It happens because we are in the space-time continuum and information can travel across the space-time continuum. All right? And we can pick it up. But usually, you need to be silent or still. So for people who don't do meditation, the only time that you are silent and still is when you are sleeping. And that's why sometimes people get prophetic dreams. So prophetic dreams can come from the space-time continuum, or it can come from a spirit that try to communicate with you. All right. So I believe I've answered most questions. Any more last minute questions before we call it a day? Any questions? All right, if no questions, thank you for joining me. I hope you all learned something here today. I'm happy to share all this knowledge with you all. And if you all find that you all managed to get some value out of this, please do make a donation, right? If you find that you get some value. If you cannot afford a donation, that is also fine. I will send out the details in the groups. And I will also be informing everyone in due time what is our next topic. So this recording will be released publicly probably sometime next month. All right. Thank you for joining me. I hope to see you again sometime. Goodbye. Thank you. Good night and good day.